All right, everybody, so it is time for another vlog update on Camper Build 9.0. And I will admit, this build I was kind of expecting to be wrapping up about this time, but I'm not going to. It's probably going to be another couple weeks. I mean, that's fine. I'm in no rush. I've got no timeline. Just for some of you guys, I feel like a lot of my previous videos, I said I should be done in a few weeks, and then here I am a few weeks later, and I'm still building. So, but that's okay. We do these for fun. We're under no timeline. Nothing happened that, nothing bad happened that slowed down the build. I don't really have a good rationale. Just sometimes the builds take a little bit longer, and I'd rather take a little bit longer and do a nicer job than rush it through. So, but this vlog update is going to primarily be focused on the interior. I've been working steadily in there. I've got all the insulation done, which I'll show you guys in a minute, and I am now moving into building cabinetry. But right here, I wanted to show you guys my interpretation of the Dutch door. Now, over the years, specifically, or more specifically, since I've been making campers where the tailgate can shut, so I guess that would be 7.0, 8.0, and then now 9.0, I've had a lot of people suggest making a Dutch door. And so I did for this build. Now, I will say this, I didn't necessarily research how other people make Dutch doors. I didn't even really look at many examples. I just kind of took the need case that I wanted and made what I had. So I will caveat that the way I made this, there's probably many other ways to make it, and there's maybe many other features that people have, but this is the way I did it. So we did get the lock set in. This is just my standard key combination lock set that I've used on pretty much most of my other builds, with a few minor exceptions. This is a quick set one. I really like these. These have held up really well. So I put that in there. And then, so what I did here, let me go ahead and zoom this camera in so you guys can see this a little closer. So, right here, I'll tilt this handle down so you can see it, is this latch mechanism. Now, the cool thing is, clearance here between this door handle is literally like 1/8 of an inch. That was a little bit of luck on my part. I would like to take credit for that, but my assumption would be that when I went to manipulate this kind of reminds me of kind of like a bolt action on a rifle, except for you can lock it in both positions. My thought process I would just have to tilt down the handle when I manipulated this, but it just so happens I can manipulate it underneath the handle. But you lift that up, and then the doors separate, okay? Now, down here at this bottom section, a lot of people, or I've had people in the past, suggest I put a deadbolt or some other locking mechanism here. And I chose not to purposely. One of them is a little bit further below this. I was afraid that if I had a deadbolt or some other locking mechanism that it might interfere with the tailgate closing. Plus, I just didn't really want to add that. For my use case, I don't really intend to lock this bottom part shut so much. Now, it can swing and just kind of rest in the shut position. But for the most part, I guess the thought process is with this upper portion opening, if somebody shut the tailgate, you can open this up. I also thought about scenarios to where if you were urban camping and you wanted to be really stealthy. Now, this sounds a little unlikely and maybe a little bit ridiculous, but you could theoretically get inside the camper, pull the tailgate shut, and then from the inside shut this upper door and lock it. I don't know if I would ever do that, but you could. So, and a lot of it was just kind of an experiment. I didn't know if mechanically how secure and how well this Dutch door system would work, but spoiler alert, it actually worked out pretty well. Okay. I don't know why that was beeping, but here we go. So the way this works is down here, you can see this is a piece of walnut, okay? And that sits above the level of this. So the way that this works is when these doors are together, even without this latch shut, the whole door swings together because, if you were pushing on this, it obviously catches on there. Now, when you want to lock it in position, this thing just slides down. It's a little bit of a stiff, well, it's not too stiff actually. I think it's just about perfect. But that locks in here. Now both these sides are tight together. Now the gap between here, I made that pretty tight. You know, obviously it is not, you know, you could still manipulate the doors separate from each other, but it is a little bit of a tight fit. Yeah, I mean, that's in a nutshell. And the door works really nice. It's a really nice sound of the door shutting. So I was a little, like I said, I was a little concerned about the fitment of the door, you know, if it would fit right. And it's not perfect, I won't lie to you, but it is pretty darn good. I did add a seal here, but it has a really nice shut. A little bit of the resistance is because of the seal. But yeah, I'm very happy with how that door worked out. Very secure. And I think for all those who suggested a Dutch door, I think it's a great idea. But let's go ahead and move on to the inside here. All right, so here we are on the inside. I'm always a little self-conscious about the quality of my work. Keep in mind that this is still in the process, so there's, you know, some trim and all kinds of different things I need to add. So we're still in the construction phase. But this is the bed platform here. So very much like 8.0, this is going to be primarily a solo camper. Let me go to wide angle here. And what I did though is the bed, I think you guys can see here, actually angles to the wider point out there by, it's about 6-inch difference from down here. Now the reasoning because of that is obviously the center placement of the door. If it, you know, the door would be far to one side. I'm not necessarily saying that's bad, but I just kind of pushed the door a little bit to the right. And just like I did on 8.0, the bed angles. So your head is intended to sleep down here and your feet toward the back here. From the best I can approximate in my experience, the widest part of the bed that I would need would be up around, you know, my shoulders or my head, you know, if I'm laying on my back and my head or on my stomach and I have my arms in front of me. Being a little bit narrower down toward the legs and the foot box, at least for my, is not a big deal. But this bed is, so this platform that you see on here, this is just a piece of 1/4-inch plywood. And the distance from here to the wall is 36 inches, and this walnut piece here is 1 inch thick. So it's technically 37 at the widest. And then, like I said, it narrows down to 32 or 33 if you count the walnut piece down here in the back. That's a little foot box down there. Of course, it'll be trimmed up and look nicer. I got to build the box around the AC unit. But what I did on this, a little bit different than 8.0, is a twofold thing. If you guys remember at 8.0, it kind of extended out at an angle here, like real soon from the entrance, and then went straight back. But what I did here is just, you know, just had an angle straight back. And that gave, you know, a lot more opening space here, which I think just is a little bit more inviting to come in. It doesn't seem quite as confined. What else I did, which I thought was kind of a fun little thing, is I opened up underneath the bed. So from 8.0, I actually had columns that went down that corresponded to the 3 columns that you would see on the wall, but went down to support the bed weight. But here, I just, I wanted to open it up a little bit more and give it just kind of a little bit more of an open feel. So instead, I just essentially... Now, I'm going to talk about the walnut in a second, but I came into a bunch of walnut from a good friend of mine. So there's going to be a lot of walnut accents, but I used a big, long, single piece of walnut here. It's about 1 3/4 inches tall, 1 inch wide. And then underneath, I just did a pretty elaborate reinforcement job using cedar, and then of course, just like I normally do with the frames, I laminate it, you know, I glue them together to make them strong. And then I added this angled piece there right in the center to kind of help support the bed. But what that did is it left a really open platform down there. Now in the far back, I don't know if it's too visible here, but you can see that black bag. That's actually going to be my porta potty. And then right down underneath here, kind of where you see the fuse box there, that's where the power station is going to sit. But other than that, all that space underneath there is not really accounted for. But I think it's really nice. It gives it a much more of an open feel. And you got to keep in mind that when this is on the truck, eye level is going to be, you know, roughly about right here. So you guys can see it gives it way more of a perspective of openness. And the bed, I thought it would be strong, but I wasn't sure if I'd need to reinforce it, but it's super strong, no flex. That system right there worked out really well. Now, last time you guys did see the insulation on the walls, but what I've done now is I've got the insulation or the fabric around the insulation of the roof. Now, there will be trim that runs over these beam sections here. Right now, the insulation pieces are just held in there with friction and a couple little temporary pieces of wood that just kind of hold it in place. But man, I really, really like that look. I know a lot of you might have concerns about it feeling kind of dark and confined in here. And again, everybody has their own perceptions. But even with most every surface being very dark, with a few minor exceptions, with proper light placement, which I talked about in detail last week, it still gives this a very, very open and nice feel. So my next location that I'm going to start to work on is over here on this side, and I'm going to talk about that. But let me show you guys here. Someone was asking the other day about how kind of my utility mechanism for powering these lights. This battery, this is a 100 amp hour battery made by a company called DrPrepare. I thought that was a pretty nice name, kind of easy to remember. And, standard lithium iron phosphate 100 amp hour battery, 12 volt. But this has some neat features that you typically don't see. So obviously, a lot of you guys are wondering, well, how am I pulling 12 volts directly off the battery? And it's this little part right here. This is what they call a hub. Now, it is an extra accessory. I think it was like 20 bucks, but well worth it. This was a pretty affordable battery in and of itself. But this hub snaps into place, and it has a DC output here. And they actually include the attachment to this to the male or to the female cigarette lighter socket. All of my campers I set up with a male cigarette lighter socket off of the fuse box, so I can just easily plug it in. But this hub also has some USB-C, a USB out, so a couple more USBs. And what is this? I can't remember now. Oh, yeah, it even has a small little solar charge controller. It's very small. I think it can only power up to 100 watt solar panel. Off the top of my head, I apologize, I don't remember the voltage range, but it was minimal. I think it was like 16 to 30 volts or something like that. But I mean, it's kind of a neat little setup. I mean, most of us are used to a big power station, with inverters and all that. But if all you need is a little bit of DC output and you want a real small footprint, this little setup is pretty neat. It also has two other features, which I thought was cool. And this is built right into the battery here. Up here, now it's a simple, but it has it's a little button you push and it just kind of lights up. It gives you, presumably 25, 50, 75, or 100%. So you kind of know what your battery capacity is there. And it has a couple nice handles. And, one other thing, which I thought was really cool. You guys can see this little cutout here with these threaded screw holes, or threaded bolts for, where you could screw in a bolt. They actually have two plates that they give you, and you thread it into here, so right in the body of this, and then they extend out and has screw holes. So if you wanted to, mount this permanently on a surface, you could put those plates in there and screw it down. So I thought this was a really cool setup, and this is what I've been using while I'm working in the camper. Link will be in the description if you guys are interested. But let me walk over here. So I talked about this before. This is the Iceco fridge. So some of the differences between this and 8.0 is I decided that I wanted a little bit more of a prominent fridge, and I wanted it in a little bit of an easier or more accessible location. So down here, now obviously there's just the exposed insulation, but there, and I'm going to talk about the walnut here in a second, but I came into a bunch of walnut, so I'm going to make a walnut countertop that's flat and flush right there. Roughly where that sink is staged, I'm going to have a box up there, and the sink will be right there, so it will extend up to about the bottom of the window. And then just like 8.0, over here, there will be a cabinet with a pull-down door, kind of like a secretary desk, which will have a flat work surface area. Underneath will be a big drawer, and then I am going to include a microwave in here. So that black cord up there is the AC, which extends all the way underneath here where the final batteries will sit. Let me put this on a tripod, and I'm going to lift up the AC and kind of, or the microwave, and I'm going to kind of show you where that's going to sit so you guys can get a concept of that. If for most of you, I'm assuming you can kind of remember what 8.0 looked like. You know, there will be this cabinet space here with a door that pulls down and has a work surface. Well, what I'm going to do is this will sit on top of the cabinet, and it will sit roughly about right here. I know it's probably a little hard to visualize. So underneath this will be a cabinet, like a secretary desk with a pull-down door. And then down at the bottom, because I have to have enough height, so when I'm sitting on the table here and the pull-down workspace comes in, you know, it sits above knee level, there'll be a big drawer down here. So now you'll notice that the microwave, sorry about that, doesn't extend all the way to the side. I have a little bit of extra space. So up here above where that cabinet will be, you know, probably like this, I'll just have like a little cubby, and then that will also allow some access to this upper portion, which will be storage. And then there'll be doors just like 8.0 over there. All right, finally, I keep mentioning walnut. I got to talk about the walnut. A good friend of mine who was we had worked together a number of years in the past, he actually came into a whole bunch of walnut from a shop that was closing down, and they were essentially just giving it away. Just kind of one of those amazing things sometimes you run into in life. And so he gave me a bunch of these. They're kind of like about 4x4 size. I think they're dimensionally about 3.5 by 3.5. But he gave me 7 of these, and they're well over 10 foot long. And this is just solid walnut. A little bit of an unusual piece of wood to work with, but I love walnut, and I'm going to make it work. So this camper is going to be a lot of walnut in there. It's black walnut, beautiful wood. I absolutely love black walnut. So the countertops are going to be black walnut, and a lot of the trim is going to be black walnut. And my intent with the cabinetry in here is to kind of give a little bit of a more modern look than kind of the rustic look that I usually give. And so in a combination of trying to give it a little bit of visual interest, saving weight, and also, you know, using material, the cabinets in here are going to be a combination of walnut, and then I have a ton of 1/4-inch scrap. So like a lot of the sidewalls for the cabinetry, I went through and experimented with a lot of different stains, and this is called a dark walnut stain. Now, this is not finished, so it looks a little rough right now, but I really like that color contrast. So what I'll do is I'll have the 1/4-inch pieces apply that will occupy like the larger sidewall sections of the cabinets, and then the frame of the cabinet and the trim of the cabinet will be this black walnut. Now, I'll probably leave the black walnut just as is, but I'll put probably a coat or two of a rub-on poly on there. But I really like it. It's kind of a rustic but modern look. I know it's a very small example, and probably next update video you guys will see some of the cabinets taking shape. But I'm really, really excited. Excuse me. I'm really, really excited about how that's going to look, and I love walnut. So, you know, and you can see the walnut coming in. So this This serves a structural purpose also, but that walnut trim there for the front of the bed platform, there'd be a piece of walnut that runs along that piece for that side part. Now, of course, like all hardwoods, walnut can be quite heavy. So I'm still going to use a lot of cedar framing, particularly in the non-cosmetic areas. But then these walnut pieces, is you can cut them down real thin. I mean, that's it's probably just a hair over a 1/4 inch. But these are, you can see once you cut it down pretty thin, it's pretty light. So a lot of the frame members and stuff like that, that's kind of how I'm going to keep the weight low, is use it in combination with that 1/4 inch ply, and just try to keep the pieces of walnut as thin as possible. Keep it light, and also preserve preserve the product, because walnut is hard to come by, and I'm very, very grateful to have gotten access to that. I had mentioned this fridge before. Iceco was kind enough to collaborate with me on this build specifically. It was nice. They actually watched my channel enough to see that I was in an active build, so they gave this to me ahead of time. I'll be doing a full dedicated review in the future, but I did want to give them some love. There is a link in the description if you guys are interested. This is a really, really nice one. This is a real, gosh, I think this is aluminum. But it's a very light fridge. It's got kind of a dual zone to it here, right there. And Iceco, one of the top brands in refrigerators out there. I've used a couple Iceco products in the past. Always been proud of, really liked them. But I think that's going to look really, really sharp. You can already see how it's contrasting with the fabric wall covering. You put in the nice walnut trim, it'll sit on a walnut thing. I think it's going to look real nice. This little sink here, like I said, will have a little platform this will sit in. Just kind of come up here, just like a little box. I think it's going to look really nice. All these different tones in here, I think, is going to give it a really, really nice warm look. So anyways, guys, that's it for this.